If you're starting keto and thinking, why do I feel tired, stuck, or confused already? You're not alone. Keto isn't just about cutting carbs. It's about teaching your metabolism to heal, reset, and burn fat efficiently. Today, I'll walk you through 10 beginner keto tips that help you burn fat faster, avoid the most common mistakes, and actually feel better doing keto, not miserable. Most people think keto is just another low-carb trend, a temporary trick to drop a few pounds. But what if I told you that keto is not a diet at all? It's a biological switch, a metabolic reset written into your DNA, a survival program your body has used for thousands of years, long before grocery stores, sugar, or ultra-processed food ever existed. Every cell in your body is designed to run on two fuels, glucose or fat. And right now, for most people, that switch is broken. Modern life has locked the body into constant sugar burning, trapping fat in storage and keeping insulin chronically high, silently driving obesity, diabetes, fatty liver disease, inflammation, and even neurodegeneration. Keto is the process of unlocking that switch again. When you eat carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises and your pancreas releases insulin, a powerful storage hormone whose job is to move glucose into cells and store excess energy as fat. This system works beautifully when carbohydrates are scarce, but in today's world, insulin never gets a break. The average person eats every few hours, snacks constantly, and consumes sugar in forms they don't even recognize. From sauces to healthy cereals to fruit juices marketed as wellness. Chronically elevated insulin tells your body one thing over and over again: store energy, do not burn it. Fat loss becomes biologically impossible, not because of weak willpower, but because insulin is blocking access to stored fat at the cellular level. Keto changes this by doing something radical yet deeply natural. It lowers insulin long enough for the body to remember how to burn fat. When carbohydrate intake drops significantly, blood glucose stabilizes and insulin falls. This is not starvation. This is metabolic flexibility being restored. As insulin drops, fat cells finally open and release fatty acids into the bloodstream. The liver converts these fats into ketones, an alternative fuel that can cross the blood-brain barrier, feed the heart, and power muscles with remarkable efficiency. Ketones are not dangerous byproducts. They are clean-burning, signaling molecules that reduce oxidative stress and inflammation in the brain and body. Research shows that ketones produce more energy per unit of oxygen than glucose, meaning your cells get more power with less cellular damage. This is one reason why people often report mental clarity, steady energy, and reduced brain fog once they become keto adapted. The brain, which consumes up to 20% of your body's energy, thrives on ketones, and this is why ketogenic therapies are being studied for conditions like epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and traumatic brain injury. Alzheimer's is now being referred to by some researchers as type 3 diabetes because of insulin resistance in the brain, and ketones bypass this broken glucose pathway entirely. But here's the shocking truth most people never hear. Weight loss is not the primary benefit of keto, it is a side effect. The real goal is insulin control. When insulin remains low and stable, hormones that regulate hunger, satiety, and fat storage finally realign. Leptin sensitivity improves, ghrelin levels normalize, and the constant drive to eat fades. This is why people on keto often say, "I'm not hungry all the time anymore," a sentence that feels almost impossible in a world addicted to constant stimulation and consumption. Keto also exposes one of the biggest lies in modern nutrition, that calories are all that matter. Two diets with the same calories but different insulin responses will produce dramatically different results. A 1,500 calorie diet high in sugar and refined carbs keeps insulin elevated and fat locked away, while a 1,500 calorie ketogenic diet lowers insulin and allows fat to be released and burned. This is not theory, it is human physiology. Insulin is the master regulator of fat storage, and ignoring it is like trying to drain a bathtub while the faucet is still running. At a cellular level, keto triggers profound healing mechanisms. Lower insulin and lower glucose reduce glycation, the process where sugar damages proteins and accelerates aging. Ketosis activates pathways linked to autophagy, the body's internal recycling system that clears damaged cells and dysfunctional mitochondria. This process is associated with longevity, cancer protection, and immune resilience. In a world where chronic disease is the norm, keto doesn't just manage symptoms, it changes the internal environment that creates disease in the first place. The tragedy is that many people try keto the wrong way and conclude it doesn't work. They chase weight loss instead of metabolic healing. They fear fat while cutting carbs, starving their cells of fuel. They snack constantly, keeping insulin elevated even without sugar. Then they blame their bodies, when the real issue is that the metabolic reset never fully happened. Keto requires time, consistency, and trust in biology, not perfection or obsession. What makes keto powerful is not restriction, it's restoration. It restores the body's ability to switch fuels. It restores hormonal balance. It restores the natural rhythm between fed and fasted states that modern eating has destroyed. For the first time in years, sometimes decades, the body experiences what it feels like to run efficiently, quietly, without constant hunger signals screaming for attention. And perhaps the most profound shift is psychological. When blood sugar stabilizes and insulin normalizes, cravings lose their power. Food stops controlling your thoughts. The emotional roller coaster driven by glucose spikes and crashes fades. This is why keto feels life-changing to so many people. It's not just fat loss, it's freedom. Freedom from constant hunger, freedom from brain fog, freedom from the belief that your body is broken. Keto is not magic, and it is not a shortcut. It is biology finally working as intended. It is the reminder that your body is not failing you. It has been responding perfectly to the signals it was given. Change the signal, and the outcome changes. Lower insulin, restore fat burning, and the body begins to heal itself in ways that no calorie counting app ever could. This is why keto is not just another diet. It is a metabolic reset, a return to metabolic truth, and for many, the first step toward reclaiming their health from the inside out. If you're starting keto and thinking, why do I feel tired, stuck, or confused already? You're not alone. Keto isn't just about cutting carbs. It's about teaching your metabolism to heal, reset, and burn fat efficiently. Today, I'll walk you through 10 beginner keto tips that help you burn fat faster, avoid the most common mistakes, and actually feel better doing keto, not miserable. Most people don't fail keto because they eat too many carbs. They fail because their body quietly runs out of the very elements that make life possible, and no one warned them. Electrolytes, protein, and simplicity sound boring compared to miracle foods and dramatic before and after photos. But these three factors decide whether keto becomes a healing experience or a physiological crash. The human body is an electrical system before it is a weight loss machine, and electrolytes are the charged minerals that allow nerves to fire, muscles to contract, and the heart to beat in rhythm. When insulin drops on keto, the kidneys release sodium and water at an accelerated rate. And this is not a theory, it is a well-documented hormonal response. Insulin tells the kidneys to retain sodium, so when insulin falls, sodium leaves, and with it goes potassium and water. The most dangerous moment on keto is not the beginning, it's the moment just before the body adapts, because that's when most people quit. Convinced something is wrong, unaware that what they're feeling is not failure but transformation. The human body does not switch fuel systems overnight. It has spent years, sometimes decades, locked into sugar dependence, trained to expect constant glucose, constant snacks, constant stimulation. When that supply is reduced, the body doesn't panic because it's broken. It panics because it's learning. This transition period is where consistency and patience decide everything, and science explains exactly why. Inside your cells are tiny power plants called mitochondria, and for many people today, these mitochondria are metabolically inflexible. They are excellent at burning glucose and terrible at burning fat, not because fat is inferior, but because the body hasn't needed to practice using it. Research shows that mitochondrial enzymes involved in fat oxidation increase only after sustained carbohydrate restriction, a process that takes days to weeks, not hours. During this window, energy can feel low, workouts feel harder, and the brain may protest with cravings and doubt. This is not damage. It is retraining at the deepest cellular level. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make is using the scale as their only measure of success during this phase. The scale is blind to metabolic healing. It cannot see insulin dropping, inflammation decreasing, or glycogen stores emptying. In the first weeks of keto, weight changes are heavily influenced by water loss, as glycogen is depleted, since every gram of glycogen binds several grams of water. When this stabilizes, the scale may pause, even as fat loss and metabolic repair continue. Studies consistently show that short-term weight fluctuations do not predict long-term fat loss, yet people emotionally attach to daily numbers, letting a piece of metal dictate whether they continue or quit. Patience matters because hormones move slower than habits. Insulin resistance does not develop in a month, and it does not reverse in a week. Research on metabolic syndrome shows that improvements in insulin sensitivity, lipid profiles, and inflammatory markers often occur before visible weight loss. This means the body is prioritizing internal repair over external appearance, a decision that is biologically intelligent but psychologically challenging in a culture obsessed with rapid results. When people quit early, they often do so at the exact moment their body is beginning to heal. Consistency is what allows fat adaptation to complete. When keto is followed for several weeks without constant cheat days, the body upregulates fat-burning enzymes, increases ketone production efficiency, and improves the ability to switch between fuels. This metabolic flexibility is associated with better endurance, more stable energy, and improved appetite regulation. Inconsistent carbohydrate intake, even small but frequent deviations, can prolong adaptation by repeatedly raising insulin and interrupting the process. The body never fully commits because the signal keeps changing. Biology rewards clarity, not perfection. The transition period is also when the brain rewires its relationship with food. Glucose spikes activate dopamine pathways similar to addictive substances, and chronic sugar intake alters reward signaling. When carbohydrates are reduced, dopamine signaling temporarily dips, creating feelings of boredom, dissatisfaction, or emotional flatness that many misinterpret as depression or loss of joy. Research in neurobiology shows that these pathways recalibrate with time, leading to improved mood stability and reduced compulsive eating behaviors. What feels like loss is often withdrawal, and what comes after is freedom. Sleep disturbances during early keto are another reason people lose faith. As insulin drops and cortisol patterns shift, sleep can feel lighter or fragmented. Magnesium levels may be low, and the nervous system may be adjusting to a new fuel source. Studies link metabolic inflexibility and blood sugar instability to poor sleep quality, meaning the very changes that improve sleep long-term can disrupt it temporarily. Those who push through often report deeper, more restorative sleep once adaptation is complete, while those who quit never experience this phase. The irony is that impatience creates the very stress that blocks fat loss. Cortisol, the stress hormone, raises blood sugar and promotes fat storage, particularly around the abdomen. When people obsess over timelines, compare themselves to others, or label normal adaptation symptoms as failure, cortisol rises and progress slows. Research repeatedly shows that chronic psychological stress worsens insulin resistance, regardless of diet. Patience is not passive. It is an active metabolic strategy. Consistency also teaches the body safety. When meals are predictable, carbohydrates remain low, and hunger signals are respected, the nervous system downshifts out of survival mode. The body stops hoarding energy because the environment feels stable. This is why people who have dieted aggressively for years often experience fat loss only after they stop forcing it. Keto, when done consistently, sends a clear message. Fuel is available, insulin is low, and burning fat is allowed. One of the most powerful yet overlooked markers of progress during this phase is hunger. Before adaptation, hunger feels urgent, emotional, and overwhelming. After adaptation, hunger becomes calm and negotiable. This shift is driven by improved leptin sensitivity and stabilized blood glucose, changes well documented in low carbohydrate research. When hunger quiets, fat loss becomes sustainable because eating is driven by need rather than compulsion. This transformation cannot be rushed. The tragedy is that modern culture has trained people to expect instant gratification from systems that are inherently slow. Muscle growth, bone remodeling, neural rewiring, and metabolic healing all operate on biological timelines measured in weeks and months. Keto is not unique in this. It simply exposes the mismatch between human biology and modern impatience. Those who succeed are not more disciplined. They are more willing to let biology unfold without interference. Perhaps the most shocking truth is this: many people quit keto at the exact point where the hardest work is already done. Glycogen depletion has occurred. Insulin has dropped. The body is on the edge of efficient fat burning. One more week of consistency could change everything, but doubt interrupts the process. This is why patience is not just emotional advice, it is a physiological requirement. When people stay consistent long enough, the rewards extend far beyond fat loss. Energy becomes steady instead of spiky. Mental clarity replaces brain fog. Cravings lose their intensity. Food becomes nourishment instead of obsession. These changes are not placebo effects. They reflect measurable shifts in hormones, neurotransmitters, and cellular energy production. Studies on ketogenic diets consistently report improvements in metabolic markers even in the absence of dramatic weight loss, proving that healing is happening beneath the surface. In the end, keto reveals a profound truth about the human body. It responds not to force, but to signals repeated over time. Consistency gives the signal. Patience allows the response. The scale will move when the body is ready, not when the mind demands it. Those who understand this stop chasing results and start observing progress. And that shift, more than any macro or meal plan, is what turns keto from a frustrating experiment into a sustainable transformation. If you're starting keto and thinking, why do I feel tired, stuck, or confused already? You're not alone. Keto isn't just about cutting carbs. It's about teaching your metabolism to heal, reset, and burn fat efficiently. Today, I'll walk you through 10 beginner keto tips that help you burn fat faster, avoid the most common mistakes, and actually feel better doing keto. Not miserable. Most people don't fail keto because they eat too many carbs. They fail because their body quietly runs out of the very elements that make life possible, and no one warned them. Electrolytes, protein, and simplicity sound boring compared to miracle foods and dramatic before and after photos. But these three factors decide whether keto becomes a healing experience or a physiological crash. The human body is an electrical system before it is a weight loss machine, and electrolytes are the charged minerals that allow nerves to fire, muscles to contract, and the heart to beat in rhythm. When insulin drops on keto, the kidneys release sodium and water at an accelerated rate, and this is not a theory, it is a well-documented hormonal response. Insulin tells the kidneys to retain sodium, so when insulin falls, sodium leaves, and with it goes potassium and water. This is why people experience headaches, dizziness, fatigue, heart palpitations, anxiety, and muscle cramps in the first days of keto. Symptoms often mislabeled as keto flu, when in reality, they are signs of electrolyte depletion that can be corrected in hours, not weeks. Studies show that even mild sodium deficiency can impair cognitive function and physical performance, yet many beginners are still trapped in the outdated belief that salt is dangerous, unaware that low sodium intake has been associated with increased insulin resistance, higher stress hormones, and even higher mortality in certain populations. At the same time electrolytes are dropping, many beginners unknowingly sabotage themselves by under-eating protein, driven by fear that protein will kick them out of ketosis. Protein is not optional biology, it is the raw material for enzymes, hormones, immune cells, neurotransmitters, and muscle tissue. Every antibody that fights infection, every neurotransmitter that stabilizes mood, and every structural repair your body performs requires amino acids. When protein intake is too low, the body doesn't politely wait. It breaks down muscle tissue to survive. Research shows that inadequate protein intake during weight loss increases muscle loss, lowers metabolic rate, and worsens long-term outcomes, even if the scale temporarily moves. Muscle is not just for strength or appearance, it is a metabolic organ that improves insulin sensitivity and glucose disposal, and losing it makes future fat loss harder, not easier. On keto, protein stabilizes blood sugar, reduces cravings, and provides satiety signals that fat alone cannot deliver. This is why people who fear protein often feel weak, shaky, emotionally unstable, and obsessed with food, misinterpreting these warning signs as detox when they are actually signals of deficiency. Then comes the third silent killer of keto success: complexity. The modern wellness world has convinced people that health must be complicated, expensive, and visually impressive to work. Social media floods beginners with keto desserts, fat bombs, exotic ingredients, macro calculators, and endless rules, overwhelming the nervous system before the metabolism has even adapted. Stress itself raises cortisol, and cortisol raises blood sugar, directly opposing the metabolic goal of keto. Research consistently shows that decision fatigue and dietary complexity reduce adherence, and adherence is the single most important predictor of success in any nutritional intervention. Simplicity lowers cognitive load, reduces stress hormones, and allows the body to focus energy on healing rather than constant digestion and insulin management. Here is the uncomfortable truth: the body does not need variety to heal. It needs consistency. For most of human history, meals were repetitive, seasonal, and simple, and metabolic diseases were rare. When keto is built around protein, non-starchy vegetables, natural fats, salt, and water, insulin remains low, electrolytes stay balanced, and hunger signals normalize. When keto is built around snacks, substitutes, and constant eating, insulin stays elevated just enough to block fat loss, while electrolytes continue to drain. This is why people can be technically keto and still feel terrible. Biology doesn't care about labels, it responds to signals. The shock for many beginners is realizing that their symptoms are not personal failures, but predictable physiological responses. Low sodium increases aldosterone and cortisol, hormones that raise stress and anxiety. Low potassium affects heart rhythm and muscle function. Low magnesium impairs sleep, increases insulin resistance, and worsens inflammation. These are not fringe claims. They are supported by decades of clinical research. Yet most diet advice still focuses on calories while ignoring the minerals that make metabolism possible. Keto exposes this flaw brutally because when insulin drops, deficiencies become impossible to ignore. Protein, electrolytes, and simplicity work together in a powerful feedback loop. Adequate protein preserves muscle, stabilizes blood sugar, and reduces cravings. Balanced electrolytes support nerve signaling, energy production, and hormonal stability. Simplicity reduces stress, improves adherence, and keeps insulin low. When these three are aligned, the body enters a state where fat loss feels almost secondary because energy improves, mood stabilizes, and hunger quiets down. This is why some people say keto feels easy, while others say it feels impossible, even when eating similar foods. The difference is not discipline, it is physiology being supported or neglected. Perhaps the most overlooked benefit of getting these fundamentals right is neurological. The brain is exquisitely sensitive to electrolyte balance and amino acid availability. Sodium and potassium gradients drive nerve impulses. Magnesium modulates excitatory neurotransmitters. Amino acids are precursors to dopamine, serotonin, and GABA. When these systems are supported, anxiety decreases, focus improves, and emotional eating loses its grip. This is not willpower, it is chemistry. Studies on low-carbohydrate diets have shown improvements in mood stability and reduced binge eating behaviors, effects often attributed to better blood sugar control and neurotransmitter balance rather than weight loss itself. What keeps viewers watching and what keeps people failing in real life is the belief that success must feel dramatic. In reality, metabolic healing is quiet. It looks like steady energy instead of spikes. It feels like calm hunger instead of urgency. It sounds like silence in the mind where food used to dominate every thought. Electrolytes, protein, and simplicity are not exciting, but they are powerful because they respect how the human body actually works. Ignore them, and keto feels like punishment. Honor them, and keto feels like relief. This is why keto is not about eating less, but about nourishing correctly. Not about cutting, but about restoring. When the body is given enough protein to rebuild, enough minerals to function, and enough simplicity to feel safe, Fat loss becomes a natural outcome, not a forced one. The greatest mistake beginners make is chasing results instead of supporting biology. The greatest success comes when they stop fighting their body and start fueling it properly. In the end, keto doesn't fail people. People fail to give their bodies what keto requires to work. And once that truth is understood, everything changes. If you're starting keto and thinking, why do I feel tired, stuck, or confused already? You're not alone. Keto isn't just about cutting carbs. It's about teaching your metabolism to heal, reset, and burn fat efficiently. Today, I'll walk you through 10 beginner keto tips that help you burn fat faster, avoid the most common mistakes, and actually feel better doing keto, not miserable.